Howdy again, everybody. This is Doc with Therafan. I am down on Long Island for the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival, and as anybody who has stepped outside in the Northeast over the last couple of days can attest to, you can see it, you can smell it, you can feel it. That's right, the haze and the smoke from those Canadian wildfires have been slowly drifting on down south and really affecting the air quality all over the place. And it sort of did raise the question in a lot of people's minds of, well, if this smoke lingers around and we see it when the racing festival starts, how is that going to impact the horses and their ability to compete? We did see that Finger Lakes actually canceled part of their racing program because of the air quality. So how exactly does the smoke and the particulates in the smoke affect horses' health, and would it be so severe that they would consider suspending racing if the air quality pollution numbers got high enough? Well, let's take a look at answering those questions and much more as we take a little bit of a deeper dive into looking at smoke and horses. All right, so as we said, the concern is, this large amount of smoke and haze that is coming down that has been, produced by the wildfires, happening mostly in the western aspects of the province of Quebec right now. It certainly was a little bit of a contributing factor also from the wildfires that were happening in Nova Scotia. But all that smoke has kind of just been pushed up into the atmosphere, and the way that the winds are blowing and the climate is going right now, it is just kind of having all of that smoke and soot just kind of slowly work its way down through the Northeast. And this is what's caused the really horrible air quality that we've had over the last couple of days in this area. And of course, as I said, if you step outside, you can smell it, you can see it, you can feel it, so you know it's there. Creates for some interesting sunsets and things like that, but really not good for the whole breathing part of life. And it's really, when you break down what's kind of in this smoke, that's the biggest concern. And wildfire type smoke usually has a multitude of different types of compounds in it: carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, soot, some heavy metals, all of these things. And it's just a byproduct of what would be burning in the wild. Sometimes it's just the vegetation. Sometimes if it does happen to affect trash that is burned up in the process, or even homes that are potentially burned up in the process, all of that stuff gets pushed up into the atmosphere and then becomes part of this smoke and smog that works itself down. And to understand why it's kind of a concern, we have to really look at first the anatomy of the respiratory tract system in the horse. And it's similar in a lot of other species, but obviously we're talking about horses here, so that's the concern. And it's particle size that we're worried about here. So as you can see in some of these graphics that are now being put up, a lot of safety mechanisms that are available to the horse in their upper airway area, so the nasal passages going back down to about where the throat is involved in capturing and removing particles that are about 5 microns in size and above. And you can see in the graphics here exactly, roughly how that compares to the width of a human hair. So we're talking about really, really small particles here. Anything below 5 microns, which is what we find the particle size to be in a lot of this smoke debris and stuff like that, can evade those defenses in the horse and then travel down deeper into the lung passages, where they can cause things like mild low-grade inflammation, coughing, sometimes exacerbating heaves or equine asthma, things of that nature. So that's where the concern is, that it certainly can affect their respiratory function. Now, as I said, it's a low-grade type of inflammation that usually happens. We're not talking about smoke inhalation that can be deadly, as would occur if the animals were in a barn that was on fire, or right up to where these wildfires are. Then obviously the noxious gases and things like that are far more of a concern, as causing immediate death due to smoke inhalation and burning and damage to the actual linings of the respiratory tract, as compared to this smoke that kind of travels hundreds and hundreds of miles away. So, that's kind of the biggest concern we have with these horses. And, can it exacerbate some conditions that maybe have already been going on in the horse? Absolutely. Could it potentially lead to an increased occurrence or chance of some bleeding or exercise-induced pulmonary hemorrhage, EIPH as we say? certainly potentially could exacerbate that too. Remember, at the Belmont Stakes Festival, a lot of the graded stakes races, they're being run with no Lasix. So, this is not to discuss whether that's a good or a bad thing. It's just putting out the facts there that, some people feel that horses that don't run on Lasix have a larger propensity to bleed. Would this potential smoke inhalation, even on a low grade, causing this inflammation, make that bleeding worse? We're not really here to, debate that. That's a topic for another segment and another day, but it certainly is something that I'm sure is on the mind of some horsemen, trainers, and handicappers and fans. So that possibility certainly probably could exist. Now, I talked a little bit about how these particulates can certainly cause some problems in horses, but how much does that really affect their performance per se when they're athletes and working at the peak of their condition? And there's some studies out there. The most notable one that I was able to kind of find was something that was done by the University of Guelph. They were studying the effect of this kind of long traveling smoke when Calgary was going through their really severe wildfire issues a couple of years ago, and they were looking at very fit polo ponies, and they were measuring what issues they may have had, and they did notice about a 15% drop in their maximum performance ability because of being exposed to this low-grade aspect of smoke over a period of time. Now, again, it's a small sample size, and we don't know if that would be repeatable all over, but anecdotally, we certainly have noticed that, horses may not perform at their absolute best because of this slight irritation that's going on, and some horses will be affected more than others, with potential allergy issues being more exacerbated, having more nasal discharge, eye discharge just from the irritation, things of that nature. And anything that might be upsetting a horse a little bit obviously translates into potentially not performing to their best on race day. So obviously those are the big things that we worry about. And so then the question comes into, well, how do we track this? How do we know if it's too dangerous to race, per se? Because obviously in the climate that we're in right now, with extra scrutiny definitely being put on the Triple Crown and the races in the Triple Crown, everybody's going to be looking at to see, is there anything out there that could potentially affect the safety of running these horses? And of course, this smoke, I'm sure, is going to come into the conversation if it sticks around through the racing festival. And we'll talk about whether that's potentially going to happen or not in just a minute or so. So what we look at is something called the Air Quality Index, and this is put out for people, but it can be very easily extrapolated over to horses. And as you can see in some of the graphics that are being put up now, that the concern levels are about the same for both people and horses, and where we get a little bit concerned. So as far as what is really concerning for racing, well, it depends on where you really look, or what group you kind of follow. If you follow the U.S. Equestrian Federation, who does a lot of things such as eventing and dressage and a lot of the other equine sports that are out there, they look at recommending suspending any competitions if the air quality index is at a 151 or higher. And that's about mid-range for air quality. Keep in mind that in most cases, on most normal days, the air quality index is at 50 or below, which is, good normal readings. So when you start even getting up into the 150 range, you're getting into areas where, animals, people, especially those more susceptible, are going to feel the effects of this. So they recommend stopping or postponing competition at about 151 or higher. When they were having some issues in Australia a couple of years ago with wildfires, that was having the smoke kind of doing what it's doing here, traveling hundreds of miles from where the fires were to where they were conducting race meets, they looked at it a little bit higher. They kind of looked more at the 200 range and above, and they actually did cancel racing when those air quality numbers were that high. It kind of depends, I'm sure, on what veterinarian you talk to and who has researched this the most as to exactly if there's a number level you use to cut off. We don't know if HISA potentially has a number in mind where they would potentially recommend that for the safety of the horses, but it seems to be about that 150 to 200 range for the air quality index, which is not hit very commonly, would be cause for concern, and canceling racing or postponing racing until the air quality got better. How long does it take a horse to kind of recover after being exposed to levels that are that high? Again, kind of depends on who you talk to, but the veterinarians usually recommend a kind of a gradual return to activity. It can take sometimes a month or two if the horse is really susceptible to the effects of this kind of smoke to regain their full lung function and clear any kind of allergic or inflammatory issues that are going on. There certainly are medications that can be given to help with that. course, now if you're looking to race this weekend and you've got a horse that may be suffering a little bit of inflammation, you can't really medicate them with too much because you can't have any medications in their systems when they're racing as part of the normal drug protocol. So that's a whole nother wrinkle that goes into this when you're dealing with these kind of smoke issues and training and racing horses. So that all brings us to what's going to happen this weekend. We are recording this on Wednesday, so the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival is going to be starting tomorrow, Thursday. It looks like from the forecast that we can see, at least for the New York area, the smoke is kind of going to mostly work itself out of the area at harmful or concerning levels by the end of the day today, maybe a little bit into tomorrow. We still may see a little bit of the air quality indexes being high or higher Thursday. But after that, it kind of depends on which meteorologist you talk to. It looks like the current models are projecting that the smoke really is going to be pushed a lot more south, just the way the winds are going, and everything's going to stay clear and things are going to clear out, and we're going to have good air quality for racing on Friday and Saturday, and hopefully most of Thursday too, since they're not starting the card till later. There are some meteorologists that say that no, there's going to be another round of this coming in and down that will affect air quality on Friday and Saturday. That's more of the minority opinion right now. So I don't know if that's really going to stick. I've just seen that pop up a little bit here and there. But obviously, I'm sure that everybody at NYRA and HISA and everybody else is watching this very closely. Everybody wants what's best for the horses and for their safety. And hopefully we will not be in a position where a decision like that would have to be made, especially with as many great races and Grade 1 races and in the final leg of the Triple Crown, the Belmont Stakes, happening this weekend. So hopefully that helps answer just a little bit about smoke inhalation on this type of scale in horses and why it's so much of a concern. Figured I just wanted to, kind of jump on and discuss it a little bit, since I know it's going to be a topic of discussion going into the races this weekend. And again, this is just general information. We're not talking about a specific horse. We're not talking about specific instances here. This is just kind of what is the concern when we do have smoke that is coming from wildfires like this into certain areas and affecting the air quality. So if you do have any other questions about it, anything I may not have covered or anything that you may have piqued your interest or a comment, please feel free to leave it. Go ahead, drop it right in the comments section of the video or on the social media platform that we're sharing this on. And other than that, hope everybody does enjoy the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival. If you are going to be at the track, check it out. There's going to be some amazing things going on, especially with the commemoration of Secretariat's the 50-year anniversary of Secretariat's amazing run to the Triple Crown. So I'll be back during the week with a lot more interesting information for you guys as fans. And as always, if you are looking for the most accurate and up-to-date information of anything and everything involving this great sport of thoroughbred racing that is made specifically for you, the racing fan, by us, the racing fans, there's only one place for you to turn, and that's right here at ThoroughFan.